It's going to be a very difficult moment for me because passing after Roland is always difficult. He's just an inspiring leader and an inspiring speaker. I am here today to take 10 minutes of your time to try to show you how we concretely make shore power less complicated and how we make sure that all of the hurdles that you have heard of, especially on the technical side, are actually solved because they have been solved before, but just by sharing information. So I'm not going to spend too much time on these slides because you know what is EOPSA. We are one of the key partners for this event. But I wanted to remind you that, of course, EOPSA is here to facilitate network for people that are willing to lead the transformation to shore power. This is also to inform the community about what is shore power and to represent us, especially towards Europe. Today, I am here to talk about one of the specific working groups that we have done within the EOPSA association that is about informing. And concretely, in order to make all of these difficulties, those technical complexities that we have heard of, a little bit less complex, we have created a guideline. Because today, what we see, one of the main hurdles to deploy shore power is that we still have an issue in specifying, making sure that the ports, the engineering firms that are involved in the port, the consultants, the port authorities, the terminal operator, fully understand what system they will need and are fully able to specify the tender, write the tender for the need. You all, I guess that you all know about the expression, a problem well explained is a problem half solved already. This is what this guideline is about, is giving you not the answer, but giving you information that's going to help you make sure that you specify what is the specific needs of your port. This guideline, as I was saying, was the result of a working group from EOPSA members. So we are trying to not be partisan in that guideline. Here you have the name of the key members who participated to writing these guidelines, or Mazabal, that actually did most of the job, leading also the work until achievements, making all of the team here together. I was part of the working group representing Cavotec, but we have also gentlemen that are in the audience. We had Chris here from ABB. We had some colleagues from Stemann Technik, Schneider Electric with Hugues that I've seen, and GE as well was part of the group. The objective was to put together our collective knowledge, our collective experience, in order to make sure that when a port wants to start the journey for shore power, he has something to start with. So what do we do? We wrote a guideline. What's the guideline? It's not necessarily the recipe yet to make sure that you have the answer to all of the questions for your own ports, but at least it's a collection of information a collection of information that will make sure that you ask yourself, or a port, or the engineering firm that wants to deliver a system will ask themselves the right questions to specify correctly the product. This guideline covers questions about the power and the electrical distribution needed for a full installation. We, of course, talk about the power conversion. Conversion is a very important part in shore power. The automation and the supervision. We talked about energy management system and other supervision systems, so this is also covered in the guide. Cable management system, obviously, this is a very important part, of course, of a complete shore power project. And the operations. Often, operations are forgotten. We fully understand that actually running a shore power substation, running a shore power system is actually new for most ports in terms of maintaining and or operating the machines, and we need to raise awareness about what are the key questions to ask yourself before you develop one. The guide is structured with, for each of those aspects, having a short introduction of what is the main objective of each of these subsystems, some examples of what is existing in terms of technologies, and then some recommendations. Again, we are not talking about recommendation about what you should select, but more a recommendation about what you should learn and what you should specify, so that you are able to get from your supplier, from the engineering firms, from the technology suppliers, the system, a product that will fit your needs. Because I'd like to quote one of our colleagues here also that is at NatPower today. All men are created equal, but all ports are different. So you cannot really duplicate one shore power system to another. To get a little bit into the details, this is just to an aperitif to try to entice you into getting into that guide. We are covering the topic of power and electrical distribution. Of course, there are going to be some introduction about what are the energy sources that you are using for the product, for the project, how do you need to connect to the grids, which are the entities, and what are the technical requirements for that. There is how do you calculate the total power requirement for your projects. This is kind of quite general and kind of obvious information that you will need to put in your tender. But there are also in the guide some specific aspects or information to tell you what is metering, where do I need it, what is power reversibility, is it a function that I need, what does that mean to have a system that is upgradable and flexible, or should I care about power quality or the environmental conditions? So these are not necessarily questions that you know or topics that you know before you start your journey, but when you read the guide, you know at least that you need to learn from the guide, but also learn from the other suppliers in the industry or from the previous pod that have done an installation, why that matters. Other aspects are, of course, power conversion and the substation. So in the guide, you have different information that are talking about the technology of conversion, the different architecture you would have, the performance or the installation types. You have, again, a lot of variations, but the guide is not telling you which one is better than the other, because it all depends on your specific needs. A port with one berth providing shore power for one vessel at one time doesn't have the same needs than a port like here that will have multiple vessels at one time in a very large area. So the objective is really to highlight what are the key questions, what are the key technologies that are existing. So when you prepare the tender, you make sure that you ask the various suppliers, what's in it for me? Why do you have that technology? Why does that matter in terms of performance, of efficiency of conversions, and so on and so forth? Other elements in the guide is the automation and supervisions. It's going to, again, general consideration in the guide about what is control and automation and the difference with supervision. But also some aspects that are a little bit less known, but that can influence the system, the quotes you're going to get from the suppliers, the system that's going to be delivered, and in the end, whether you're going to be satisfied with the overall system you get. Cybersecurity, do you need to integrate that specific shore power system with your port supervision? Do you need redundancy, or what's the impact on the type of personnel do I need? If you have a more advanced IT system, you're most probably going to need some IT personnel. If you have a very manual and simple system, maybe you need different types of competencies. And all of this impacts at the end the way you run your system, what are your cost of operation, and how you can eventually scale or evolve your system. So again, no answers in the guide, but more highlights or pointing out what are the questions you need to ask your suppliers or to your engineering team. What do I need? Cable management system. One of the elements that is very much visible. A cable management system is actually the solutions for a very complex problem, that is to take into account the port constraints. What's the size of the berth? Where is the machine going to go? Is there the space to have cables below the quay or not? The environment, what's the tide? What's the wind? What's the temperature outside? What's the vessel? Where is the hatch level? How much cable I need to have into this into the vessel? If you do not know, as a port authority or as someone that is preparing a tender, that you need this information to make sure that the machine that you're going to buy will help you connect 90% of the call, because this is what we are talking about. We are talking about being compliant with with AFIR. So you need to connect 90% of the call. But if you take a standard machine while your port is very specific, you might have elements where this is not working. You are not able to connect and subject to penalties. So specifying what are the port requirements, the environment, the vessel, and what type of operation you need, manual, semi-automatic, or other type of interaction with other elements on the quay, is important to make sure that what you get is a machine that will serve you and will allow you to connect at least 90% of the core. Lastly, we talk about operation and maintenance. For many of the ports, shore power is actually a new type of system to operate. You might decide to delegate it to one of your suppliers. You might decide to take full ownership of the systems. Anyway, you need during the tender also to understand what are the costs, what are the competencies, who's going to be able to train the people that are going to manage, either operate or maintain those new technology that you don't necessarily have somewhere else in your organization. So again, some elements in that guide that are reminding you, do specify those aspects during your tender, because if you do that early, you make sure that you are getting first comparable offers, but complete offer that will really serve your objectives. Lastly, that guide is 87-page long, and it's the first version, and it's going to most probably grow as we grow the community and as we grow the experience. But to make it also way more practical, there is a checklist. So here are just three examples, 3 pages, but that guide is really, the objective is to be very handy for any engineering firms that would be preparing a tender, saying you need to have an answer to that question. Do you have that information? Did you specify this? And then it's a checklist, yes or no. What is the value? And if you don't have it, then okay, it can happen that you don't know everything, but then ask also to the suppliers or to other people, what's the consequences if you have not specified that elements? Because again, you don't want to have to buy a system that's not going to be fitting your needs. To conclude, knowledge grows when shared. So I invite you to scan that very large QR code, because this is where you can download the guide. And most importantly, this is the starting of a journey. This is the first version of the guide. You might have a lot of comments and ideas to improve it. So feel free to send it either to EOPSA or some of the members that wrote that guide, and we will make sure that this knowledge is shared. Thank you very much.